So I still have an iPad Pro from 2020, which still has Apple's phone chip in it. These past few years, I've really considered whether I should upgrade my iPad, since I'm actually a heavy user of my current iPad Pro. And after seeing what Apple showed off yesterday, I thought it might be time for an upgrade. But later that day, I actually sat down and said to myself, does all this power and any of these features actually benefit my work? And I could only come to the conclusion that it wouldn't. Yes, it's incredibly impressive that they've managed to make an already slim product even slimmer. Actually, their slimmest product ever.
The thinnest Apple product ever.
And yes, the new M4 chip with its incredible power and power efficiency also sounds really amazing. But here's the thing, 99% of all iPad users don't need it to be slimmer, more powerful and more power efficient, because everything already runs smoothly. If I look at what I've been doing with my iPad these last few years, I haven't edited videos on the iPad and never will, since you have to import the footage to the iPad some way anyway. So why wouldn't I just import it to my computer where every feature of any editing software is available? It should be said that editing is a big part of my job, since I'm a full-time freelance photographer and actually most videographer, since video is where I specialize. But I would never edit on my iPad. They've made the experience with DaVinci Resolve on the iPad great, but I still mostly use all of Adobe's programs, and here I've been using Premiere Pro, Illustrator, Photoshop and Lightroom, but none of these apps functions as great on the iPad as they do on the computer versions, even though they've been completely revamped specifically to the iPad. So as a professional photographer and videographer, I can only see it as a nice addition to your computer and not something that can replace it fully, just like it's always been. The new mesh shading and ray tracing availability is cool, but this is probably only useful if you use any 3D software on your iPad or if you game a lot on your iPad. So cool, but for most people, probably useless. Yeah, the tandem OLED screen is cool and all, but you can also live without it, since the screen I've got on my old 2020 iPad Pro doesn't even have their mini LED technology, and it still looks phenomenal. And if you intend to put on the nano texture glass anyway, then you probably won't notice that big of a difference from this 2020 model. Since I've got a friend who has the studio display with the nano texture glass, and everything just becomes really matte and not that true to tone. So if you intend to do color work in, for example, Lightroom, I'd probably just stick with the normal version screen, where there apparently is more true tone blacks, which is always nice. What I mostly use my iPad for right now is taking notes, writing and planning content in Notion, drawing a little in Procreate, and then I use Illustrator, Photoshop and Lightroom a little. Then I also watch content, answer some mails and do other kinds of administration tasks. So that's pretty much what I do. And I actually do those things a lot on my iPad. So I would say I'm a very heavy iPad user, but most of the stuff I've just mentioned don't need an almighty M4 chip or a crazy OLED screen. Yes, it would be nice for color accurate work within Photoshop or Lightroom, but it's not necessary since I've got two color accurate monitors at my desk, which have a lot of the same features. And a lot of the tasks could also be done on a laptop or a computer, so it's totally overkill to have an iPad just for that. I really like the new Final Cut camera app and its features, but I also have a hard time seeing who would want to use their phones this way, because there's a lot of factors that go into having a broadcast setup like the one they showed. First and most obvious, everyone at the event needs an iPhone, which in itself is quite hard to pull off, in my opinion. And you actually anyway need some way of setting up the phones on a tripod, clamp or gimbal of some sort. So you do need to bring some extra gear anyway. And if everyone don't have an iPhone, then you need to go ahead and buy one. But then why wouldn't you just buy an APS-C camera that delivers a lot better quality and probably will also be cheaper? So there's a lot of things about the Final Cut camera app that wouldn't add up in the real world if you actually needed to use it. Since the price of the iPad Pro also is so outrageous as well, then I really don't think that the iPad Pro is worth it at all. It's actually even more outrageous since the 128GB version has been removed completely as an option, so yeah, it's expensive now. Even if you've got the money to spend on the new iPad Pro, I would advise you to think twice before pressing the purchase button, because the iPad Air is now a powerhouse that would benefit most people, since it has an M2 chip, which also has a lot of power to do all the daily tasks, and it is also really power efficient. A minor thing I absolutely hate about all the new iPads are that the old Apple Pencils doesn't work on their new models. Like, that's just extremely stupid in my opinion. I get that it's because of the new placement of the camera, so the magnets couldn't line up perfectly, but let's be honest, there was definitely someone in the room who said, "I can fix that!" And then the head of the department was like, "Nah fam, we need to make some more money off these things because they're not gonna sell well at all." Like, come on man, this is just stupid. Yeah, well, that's what happens sometimes. The Pro version iPad is really living up to its name Pro this year, but here I kind of feel like that's a bad thing, because most of what's been upgraded is something only a very small amount of people within some small niches actually benefit from. So for almost everyone, it wouldn't be worth investing in an iPad Pro. I will, however, say that if you use a lot, I'm talking a lot of time within drawing apps like Procreate, then this device might be worth considering. But that'll mostly be because of the new Apple Pencil Pro with the new squeeze and barrel features, so not as much because of the iPad itself. The new improved iPad Air model is, however, sounding quite good for what you're getting now, even though it's only a small spec bump that's happened. Most of the reason for why the Air sounds so great now is mainly due to the fact that you can get a 13-inch version now. So people like me who really like the bigger screen real estate don't need to go ahead and buy a Pro model iPad anymore, which is something my bank account thanks both Apple and myself for. So this is definitely a step in the right direction from Apple's side. Do I think the iPad has a place here in 2024? I would say yes, but I also think that the Pro model is beginning to see its downfall, since the Air is becoming amazingly great value for the money. Whereas the iPad Pro is becoming even more of a niche item, which not that many actually are gonna need. And if you don't believe this is how it's gonna be for the future, then you should maybe see a statistic of their sales from the latest MacBooks. Because Apple has actually shot themselves a bit in the foot simply because their M chips are amazing. So amazing that their consumers don't feel the need to upgrade their laptop that often anymore. But as a consumer, I actually like that this is how it is. If you have some work or tasks where you really could see the new iPad Pro benefit you, then please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear how it would be beneficial for you. Other than that, like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. I'm out.